I didn't want to make this video, but I feel like it needs to be said for anyone considering joining military service right now. I'm going to share my experience in the military and, just mention some things that I wish my parents had told me before I went in. Hopefully, it helps someone considering or thinking about joining. I hope you take this in consideration. And I need to say first and foremost that I'm not entirely comfortable speaking on this topic. It causes a lot of problems physically. My brain wants to go into survival mode, like alarm bells, life is in danger kind of thing, just talking about these memories. So if you bear with me, I'll get through this. And I think my few minutes of discomfort will be worth it if even just one person hears this and decides against joining and signing your life away to a criminal organization. And I know this topic is really uncomfortable for a lot of people. I've seen it happen a lot of, trying to discuss this or any mention of it. It makes people very, very uncomfortable, this whole topic. Reporters don't like going anywhere near it. Tried, and it's not popular in court cases either, as the military has a lot of immunities from things like this. So we're just going to jump right into it. I joined the military as soon as I graduated high school. 9/11 happened while I was in high school, and I joined as soon as I graduated. I was pumped up and, fired up about my Muslim hating uh, mentality, like we were taught to. We were getting all swept up um, in this hatred and revenge ideology and being directed into it. I was all for it. I believed that I was keeping my family safe. I believed I was keeping my country safe, and that the most honorable thing that I could do with my life was to serve my country. And the only thing more than that was to die for my country. And that was important to me, that I serve my country with honor. I took that seriously. I took the Army values seriously: honor, duty, integrity, personal courage, respect, selfless service, all that stuff that they teach you and drill in your head. I took it very seriously. These are the Army values. Sounds stupid saying them now, but I was, in fact, the only person willing to follow those laws. Our code of conduct. When I was activated to deploy, I was ecstatic. I was volunteered twice for deployment. During my time in, I served from 2006 to 2010, but I was ready. I was currently enrolled in a college course. I was trying to go for a major in criminal justice. I had to be excused from my classes as soon as our unit was activated. They sent us to a 2-week training out in Pennsylvania, where each of us had our own hotel rooms. And there was one person that I knew and was familiar with and was comfortable with, and comfortable enough to call him a friend. And that person I trusted with the spare key to my room, since I was always getting locked out twice a day. So I left an extra with my friend that I trusted. And then one night, some guy that I didn't know, that I had barely just met there at that training event, never seen him or heard of him before that, asked my friend for my room key one night. And while I was asleep in my own room, that person came into my room without my permission, without my knowledge, without my consent, and proceeded to do things while I was asleep. I woke up into this, and I freaked out. And then he left right away. He left right away. Like, he didn't expect me to wake up or something. I don't know. It was strange. It was very strange. But when I reported it the next day, my sergeants didn't know what to do. None of them knew what to do. We made our written statements. Everybody got interviewed, and then we went back to our duty station across the country. So we flew back from Pennsylvania to California at that time. And where I was stationed was the 1106th AVCRAD at that time. It is now the 1106 TASM G aviation unit attached to the Fresno airport. That's my unit that I'm going to talk to you about here today. So immediately after returning from this training event, this 2-week training event in Pennsylvania, I come back and I'm already on what's called active duty special work, ADSW orders. And my first stint of that was 7 months, and then they extended When I finished that, when I completed that 7 months, they extended it to 6 months again. So I spent 13 months total on this active duty, starting at this point at the end of that 2 week training period. So now I'm reporting for duty to my unit. My sergeant in charge of us, his first reaction to handle this, as soon as, the people we were traveling with didn't know that we're in charge, they just, well, let's just hand it over to the section sergeant, which was at that time Sergeant First Class James Kingan. You'll understand why I'm putting these names out. Okay, pretty soon you'll get why. I'm not afraid to use their names, and their names need to be known. Sergeant First Class James Kingan, his first reaction was to bring me and my sex offender into a tiny little closet. Okay, and he came in there with the both of us, had us both come in there with him, and he said, "Now don't come out until you shake hands and make up." And then he turned around, walked out the door, and closed it behind him, leaving me alone in some little closet with my sex offender. At that moment, the offender, Brandon Hernandez, extends his hand like he really expected me to shake his hand. I just turned out and walked away. I stormed out of there, and I went straight to go confront Sergeant James Kingan right away. That was the first reaction I had, disgusted. And I told him that was unacceptable. We have rules and procedures set in place for exactly situations like this that I just want you to follow. Do your fucking job. I just want you to follow the rules, what we're supposed to do. Well, I don't know how to help you, specialist. I don't know. If you're so familiar with the UCMJ, then tell me what we're supposed to do here in this situation. And I said, well, if you don't know, that's a problem. So if you don't know, we're going to have to just go up to your boss and keep working our way up the chain of command until we find someone who knows what to do. Sounds pretty simple to me. It sounded pretty simple to me. But when I said that, right at that moment, he leans back, rests his hands on his big old pot belly, and he looks at me in the eye and says, "I guarantee you, if you go up the chain of command any higher than me, you won't be around much longer." And at the time, I only took that threat as, like maybe I wouldn't be in the avionics section anymore. Maybe I wouldn't be in the section that I was trained to work in. That's all I thought of. I had no idea that that was a threat against my life. I didn't know at the time, but it was. And so immediately after that, I went to the first sergeant in command and scheduled a meeting with them because they were too busy to see me, and they remained for a long time too busy to see me. So I went to the unit SARC, that's the Sexual Assault Response Coordinator for my unit. And at that time, that was a Staff Sergeant Verville. And she was great, man. Never in my life has anybody stood up for me the way that she did. She had my back. She wanted to get to the bottom of it, hold everyone accountable to do their job too. One day she just disappears. I haven't seen her. This was almost 20 years ago, and I still haven't seen her again to this day. I went looking for her, of course, right away. I went to her, followed her chain, looked for the person in charge of her, and went asking around. And all they could tell me was that she was put on a psychiatric hold. I don't know what for. I'm not sure, but I never saw her again after that. And after that, the unit SARC was replaced by somebody completely ineffective, someone who really didn't care. They were more focused on whatever their other full-time job was that they're assigned to do. This SARC position was just some extra credit thing that they were going for. So it didn't really even mean anything. They cared more about, playing it safe and staying in the lines of what the commander wanted us to do, what our company commander wanted us to do, and what my entire chain of command wanted us to do. And what they wanted us to do was stay quiet. So during that time, me trying to get help was just, the military trying to medicate me. They put me on Seroquel, and that was to handle working with my sex offender. Nobody wanted to do anything about it. Nobody wanted to change anything. The people in the avionics shop were so mad at me because they didn't want their shop environment to change. They didn't want it to change. They wanted to be able to cuss as much as they wanted to without having to worry about some fucking female and her sensitivity. And they tested me with things. Like, they wanted to see if I was cool. They brought me in front of a computer once to show me a video, and it was a woman talking about women's rights and you got to respect the women. And then all of a sudden, some guy comes out of nowhere with this big old hard dick and just starts face fucking her. Just starts ramming her in the face. And he says, "Shut the fuck up." And it was just watching porn after that. And all the guys were laughing like, "Oh, we just wanted to see, if you're cool or not." That's what that was like there. They didn't want anything to change. They wanted to be able to play with each other and do all of their gay stuff without having to worry about being judged by a female or getting in trouble by some female or something. So I was disrupting that. And they wanted to make it known that they were not okay with me disrupting that. And me looking for justice for a crime that had been committed was a huge violation of their idea of a pleasant work environment and their military code of conduct. That's just the beginning of the threats and the harassment that I was dealing with from my platoon. And then my chain of command was just trying to stop me, just kept trying to stop me. I was forced to work with my sex offender for 2.5 years, okay? 2.5 years. I worked with my sex offender, and I would get penalized for trying to speak up against that when I brought it up multiple times because this isn't some desk job, okay? You're expected to do physical fitness training, standard physical fitness tests, and unarmed combatives, things like that. Working with him included all of this stuff. And yes, they did expect me to do PT with this guy. And when I refused to participate in PT events with my sex offender, I would get a counseling statement. I would get written up for refusing to abide by, standard policies and my completing my job and doing my assigned tasks. I failed to live up to the standards of my job. And by refusing to participate in physical fitness activities with my sex offender. So that included things like wrestling. And yes, they did try to get me to spar with him. I refused. I got written up for it. As I continued working my way up the chain of command, looking for anybody willing to just follow their own rules. We have rules in place for these things. We have the Uniform Code of Military Justice. We have a code of conduct that we are supposed to stick to and abide by. But I couldn't find a single person in my entire chain of command that was willing to. And this was during the Obama administration too. So keep that in mind. All right. And so a lot of other things started happening about a year into this, and things started getting really ugly. Some nefarious things started happening because I lived right across the street from that base. Everybody knew where I lived. So then the harassment began following me home. That's when people started coming to my home to harass me at night while I was sleeping. So keep in mind that during this time, ever since the night of the first offense, the sexual assault, and that was in late 2008. Ever since then, I've struggled with panic attacks, mostly in my sleep, because the assault happened. Somebody touched me without my permission while I was asleep, while I was in a state where I could not consent. It's a very clear. They kept trying to argue, it's a he said, she said. No, this is a very clear. There's consent and there's not consent. There's a very distinct difference. I never gave anybody permission to touch me that night. He did not ever have my permission to touch me. Ever since then, the panic attacks were every night. Every night, and when I would wake up for work the next day, I had to allow myself enough time to settle my heart rate down and calm down before I could get up and get ready for the day. Once I did try just powering through it, like, what is this? What is happening to me right now? Just go in the shower and shake this off. No, I passed out on my way to the shower. It was too much adrenaline going, and I had to learn how to control that. So I went to therapy, and that therapy helped me get through the panic attacks. They were so consistent and they were so persistent and so strong, these panic attacks that I would get. I don't know how it is for anybody else, but the way it was for me, any panic attack, the way it is for me still, even to this day, I deal with them. It feels like being electrocuted. When you're electrocuted, your muscle kind of tenses up and you can't untense it. You can't relax it when it's in that state. So when I go into panic, my brain starts shooting adrenaline. My whole body tenses like it's being electrocuted, and I can't untense. And this is all full body, including my neck. My neck is the worst part. My neck tightens up, and then it becomes very difficult to breathe. So that's one of the difficulties I was dealing with at that time. And then I had to get through that, try to compose myself and get ready to go work with my sex offender for the day. And that's how it was for 2.5 years. And I was spiraling. I was spiraling very badly, trying to get help, trying very desperately to get help. I filed reports with everyone I could. I made police reports there in Fresno, California, and then they had me they put me in touch with the police department in Pennsylvania, and the Mount Pocono Police Department was on point. They were so supportive, they were so helpful. They were hungry for justice against this person and wanted to throw the book at this guy. And so they were the ones that were really pushing for being able to cover this case. But the military was fighting them on it because they argued I was active duty and that I fell under their jurisdiction. So they were making it impossible for me to get help. As my unit starts getting pressure from these other police departments, these two other police departments, my unit starts getting pressure from these guys. And it's, I think, starting some panic in them. And a couple of detectives came down from CID, and I gave them my statements. I told them everything that happened. I tried to tell them about what was happening, like I was being re-victimized. These people were retaliating against me for trying to report this crime. I tried telling them that. The CID investigators, there were only two that I ever spoke with. They told me I'm not allowed to talk about that. You can't talk about the retaliation because that's a separate issue. We're only here about the sexual assault. Okay, well then can I get some help for the retaliation that I'm experiencing then? That's above my head. You know, you're gonna go through the same channels that you did that got us here. I'm like, do you realize how long it's taken and what I've gone through just to get you guys to come and talk to me? And they're like, well, regardless, that's still a separate issue. So I was never allowed to speak on the fact that I was experiencing all this harassment due to trying to report a crime. So the more pressure they got, the more serious they started to take putting on some trial and taking this to trial, military court. Around this time, this was almost like about 2 years after the incident, my company commander, Lieutenant Colonel Breeze at the time, Lieutenant Colonel Breeze, we were in an office and he offers me a bribe to drop all the charges. And the way he said it, like he wanted me to know that he knew where all of my close relatives lived, which was out of state. And he mentioned that particular state and said, don't you have family over here? Why don't you just go with them? You know, I can set you up with a really nice career up there, but you really wouldn't even have to work if you just, you just go and heal from all of this. All you got to do is just kind of push all this stuff under the table, under the rug, so to speak, just let it go and heal. And we can set you up real good with something, a few $1,000 a month for the rest of your life, make life real easy. You can heal like that, and you can get all this stuff. You could just bury it now. That'll help you bury it. Remember that. Remember that because we'll come back to it later. I told him no. I refused, and I wish I would have refused a little bit more loudly and disrespectfully than I did. But at that time, I was still trying to keep a professional attitude. I was still trying to maintain my military bearings and not be disrespectful and never get caught with my hands in my pocket, all that kind of stuff that I thought was important. And, I wish I would have refused more loudly, more disrespectfully, but nonetheless, I refused, and that's the important thing. My dad told me that I let my pride get in the way, that offer would have made my life much easier. And he was ashamed of me for not learning how to be submissive in that scenario. And he said pride comes before the fall. So, but that was my dad, and he's a Christian Zionist, so that's not saying much. There's his moral compass there. Let that speak for itself. Let them speak for themselves. So without any support, I continue fighting my entire chain of command. I continue trying to get anybody, and even try to contact our governor at the time, Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger at the time. Nothing, not anybody in my entire chain of command would help. And the higher I went in the chain, the worse it got, the more corrupt, the more nefarious it became. those offers, those bribes. But I stuck to it, and eventually I got a trial. This trial was conducted in Los Alamitos, California. But I thought I could have sworn the whole trial took place in Silent Hill because it was just this old, corroded, abandoned school that was falling apart and smelled of mold and rust. And the whole trial took place in there. It was pathetic. That is what it was. I got a guilty verdict against my offender. He was found guilty of aggravated sexual assault and was put on the sex offender registry. He argued not to be put on that because he had kids. Okay. But if you have kids, then you probably shouldn't be out committing crimes and sexually assaulting people. There are plenty of sex offenders that are parents out there, I'm sure. Anyways, it didn't work. He got put on the list and he was dishonorably discharged from the military. The avionics shop then wrote letters to make sure he kept his job, to make sure he kept his full-time job so he has a smooth transition and everything. Really looking out for him, taking care of him. My pay was halted completely. My pay was stopped at 0, okay? And when you sign your life away, they have the power to do things like this, okay? And they still expected me to perform my military duties without pay. They did not give me a DD-214 for completing my full-time, my 13 months of full-time service. They just gave me a notice, a change of pay. We're just going to give you a change of pay instead of a DD-214 for completing your active duty. 13 months straight of it, and they expected me to continue on, but as a temporary federal technician without pay. I was still expected to show up every day in uniform to report to my whoever's in charge of me, but for free, all while they were, making sure my convicted sex offender's life was, well preserved, his pay, and his life in general. So what is the outcome? I continued pursuing justice, of course, finding out how much legal immunities that our military power structure does have from prosecution. And there's a lot. They have a lot of immunities. So good luck trying to hold them accountable to their own laws. And this is why. This is why they're able to do this. This is why they're able to be criminals and conduct criminal activity in uniform with impunity. There's no accountability. There will be no accountability. There are no repercussions. There's no holding any of them responsible for perpetuating this, for supporting and protecting sex offenders. Okay, they look out for each other in there, and they are tight. They're tight. They're super tight and super gay with each other about it and protecting each other from criminal prosecution. And in my pursuit of trying to seek justice against all of these people, my entire chain of command, for the way they treated me, for the harassments I got, for being assaulted in my own home. I don't know if any of them had anything to do with it, but I was in a really bad car accident just a couple weeks before the trial. My car was totaled. Someone had looked like thrown a bunch of scraps onto the road in front of me, and I was turning on an overpass, and it was narrow and going around, and whoever in front of me threw some stuff out their window. It looked like a bunch of tire bits. It was weird. So I just drive right over it, but it catches my tire, pulls me in, and then my car spun out of control. Coincidence? A couple weeks before the trial? I don't know. But they sure threatened my life many times for those entire, couple years that I had been trying to get help. There's no legal justice that I can pursue against them because of how protected they are from following the law. The best anything anybody can do for me is maybe get service connected, right? That's all they're saying my options are. Get therapy, get your service connection, get your VA benefits. Okay, what are those? My military benefits for being a disabled veteran is a couple $1,000s a month for the rest of my life. That might sound nice to some, but that was exactly what Lieutenant Colonel Breeze had offered me to drop all the charges years prior. And same outcome, right? Is anything going to happen to these people? No. But that is about as good as it gets for people like me. If you were wronged by them in any way, if they violated your body, your person in any way, they can. You signed your life away. They could do whatever they want to you. They could break all their own rules. They could break all their own laws and their uniform code of military justice or whatever. They can violate it all. They're not held to accountability. They don't hold themselves accountable. They are criminals that look out for each other and they got each other's backs. And this was almost 20 years ago, okay? Almost. How much more so do you think they're deeply ingrained in there? Lieutenant Colonel Breeze, 1 month after the trial, was promoted to full bird colonel for his service. Sergeant James Kingen retired with full honors, and everything just continued. I appreciate Mr. Don Manley and your help and your support through this. I know you tried. I know there's a lot of closed doors, but when you told me that I saved the next girl by taking it to court and getting a guilty conviction, I wish that was true. I wish that was true, but the truth is, I didn't help anybody. Nothing changed. Everything stayed the same. And everybody who did that to me remained in place and got promoted for it. And so all the structure that's in place for these things to happen, for them to be able to treat people like this, they get rewarded for trying to keep us quiet, for keeping their workplace the way they want it. And it is a criminal environment. It is a criminal, and there's nothing professional, there's nothing honorable anymore about our entire military structure. It's gone. You need to understand that. I tried all this time for justice and accountability, just for them to follow their own rules, their own laws. That is impossible. And when I see that they're, in news events today, that even Epstein victims aren't getting justice. Why is that? They've been saying the names. They've been saying the names forever now, for more than my 20 years. They've been saying the names for a long time, but these people are all still in power. All of the Epstein clients are still in power. That is a very clear case of the law being violated, of serious criminal acts being committed by our chain of command, by our government. And if they can't get justice for those very obvious crimes that everyone can see and everyone can acknowledge that that's evil, that's against the law, that's criminal, they should be investigated at least. And they can't even get justice. So who am I to expect justice for my small little thing? What I went through is nothing compared to what the Epstein victims went through. I was already an adult when my life changed. I was already an adult. I already knew what a normal, healthy sex life was like. I already knew. So I know now. I know what I'm missing out on. It's never been the same. I can't be comfortable in my own body. For a long time, I spent hating myself and hating my body, feeling disgusted in myself because I felt so dirty, so disgusting. And as much as I craved closeness and intimacy with my husband, we've been married for 16 years. Now I know what I'm missing out on, and I know that thing that I wish I had with him, that closeness of being with your spouse and enjoying it and enjoying intimacy without any fears, without any panic. And I'll never have that again. I've been searching for it, but it's not there anymore. Such a large piece of me has died. And I can't go back. My body has been forever hardwired in this state that is completely unnatural, that we were never meant to be. We were meant to be able to enjoy these things with our life partner. We're supposed to be. It's a beautiful thing. To be intimate with your spouse is a beautiful thing, but that is forever altered for me. So my heart goes out to the victims of Epstein and trafficking, child trafficking, all that's going on right now, because these kids were violated before they had any semblance of what that was meant to be, what intimacy was meant to be. They'll never know what that was supposed to be before it got changed for them, before they were hardwired to associate fear with intimacy. So that is a death sentence for a person. Okay, in my opinion, it's like a death sentence. When you touch somebody without their permission, you are violating somebody's human rights. It is a human rights violation. Okay, it's not just some misdemeanor, sex crime. This is a human right violation. Nobody has the right to touch your body without your permission. I tell my kids that all the time. They all know it. They're very familiar with that concept of consent very early on, and everyone should be. Everyone should be, because nobody has the right to touch you without your permission. It doesn't matter how much they try to shame you in court. And yes, there was all sorts of victim blaming in my military trial. They tried so hard to make me feel ashamed of having a sex life. No, you're not going to shame me for that. You're not going to, because there's a very huge difference of giving people permission to touch me and not giving someone permission to touch me and they touch me anyways. There's a very big difference. Very big difference. I know what consent looks like. You say it's a bad thing that I'm experienced. I think it's a good thing that I'm experienced, because I know exactly what it's like when I give somebody my permission to touch me. I know what that looks like. I know what it's like when I want it, and I know what it's like when I don't. So again, even if you do sign your life away and you're in there and you're going through it now, still doesn't matter. Nobody has the right to touch you without your permission. But the moral of this story is the outcome. I can't get justice. I'll never get justice or be able to hold any of those people accountable. That's why I mentioned their names. I'm not afraid of my name getting out either. I mean, it's what our government does, right? You expose the victims and protect the pedophiles and sex offenders, right? Because that's what our government, that's what our chain of command has turned into. And you can see that from small scale, like me and my story, up to a big scale, government, widespread, systemic scale, like the Epstein victims. From big to small, all the way up the chain. You should be able to see by now how corrupt it is. There's nothing honorable about our military system. There's nothing honorable about the government, the tyrannical government that we are under. It is a criminal organization. We are ran by a criminal enterprise. You can't get justice because the criminals are the lawmakers and they are the gatekeepers. I couldn't even get any reporter to go anywhere near this story. And I've tried for years, especially around Sexual Assault Awareness Month. Still can't get any reporters or anybody to speak on this case. And in a lot of cases, people would consider this a success story, okay? Because this is about as good as it gets. This is about as much justice as you can expect, okay? And that is the moral of the story. You won't get justice. You, at best, can get a paycheck every month for the rest of your life. And that's as good as it gets. And that's what it is. And I hope I've taken a lot of time, but it's a big story and it's a long story. And I hope this helps someone. Getting a guilty conviction, fighting that fight, it didn't help anyone there at that unit. It didn't help the next girl that's going to get treated that way. It's not going to change the people that treat people that way either. There is no holding them accountable. I've tried, but this is the best I could do. I can raise awareness. I could try to talk about it, and I do. And this is what I'm doing. This is what I can do. I could just tell you my story. This is my experience. This isn't an isolated event. This is so widespread. The military created an acronym for it, for paying off their victims. MST. Go file for disability for MST. Easy. There's all sorts of resources. They'll send you a packet of resources for MST in your area. That's how widespread it is. I have, as that trial came up, I demanded out of the military. I got out. I completed 4 years, and then I told them I was done. I'm done. I don't want to be part of a criminal organization anymore. I thought you guys were honorable. I thought I was doing an honorable thing by serving. But y'all are just a bunch of criminals. So yeah, I got out right away, and I've been doing the same kind of work ever since. 16 years as a avionics technician. And I retired recently as a project manager for a small aviation company. Much more money in that same kind of work, but as a civilian. So if you want to avoid the military route, you really don't. You'll be making much less money in the military. Civilian contracts that's where it's at. But anyways, that's what I've been doing. I've been trying to earn my living, do my job, go on with my life, raise my kids, make them aware of this military power structure and what it is. Hopefully my kids will never fall into the same traps that I did. And I hope that if anyone hears this, maybe you won't fall into the same trap that I did. If you can avoid it because of my story, then just stay safe. Stay safe out there. You can avoid all this. It's not worth it. It's not even worth a few $1,000s a month for the rest of your life. It's not. And I could have gotten the same outcome for dropping all the charges and taking the bribe. I've known women who took the bribe. I've known them, I've worked with them. People like this before, just coming across them in aviation. It's a very small world. You can take that for what you want. But I knew that for me, I couldn't take that deal and look at myself in the mirror. I just couldn't do it. As a cope for the PTSD, I find video games very helpful. It's a big reason why I still play even now. A lot. A lot of it is for my peace of mind, for my sense of safety, getting outside of this torture for a bit. That's where I'll be. I'll just be playing my games, continuing my life. And I hope you guys all stay safe out there and watch out. Just watch out for these people. They're very bad people. There's not a good soul left in our military, our entire chain of command, and that's going all the way up the chain to our commander in chief, puppet commander in chief. The next one's going to be just as useless. So get your hopes up if you want. I'm not. My trust and faith isn't in these corrupt human organizations anymore. I believe vengeance belongs to God. And one day, I will see all of those people again on Judgment Day, and I will stand as a witness against them, against their character, and then that'll be the end of that. That is my hope for going on, and that is what it is. So, if you want to catch me around, I will be on my game. For other veterans who struggle with PTSD, my gaming buddies, try to be there for each other, hold each other up, hold on to each other. We're in a very cruel world right now, and we need each other to hang in there, keep fighting. Don't let anyone convince you that it's not worth the fight, because it speaks to everything about who you are. Don't ever stay silent. Don't ever stop holding people accountable to their actions. Don't ever stop. Don't give up. Do this. All those other survivors out there, you give me so much courage that if you can deal with all those things that you all dealt with, I could do it too. So please hang in there. Don't give up. Okay? That's all I've got to say.